We're of course joined today by the Norwich City manager from last season, Johannes Hoff Thorup. Johannes, how are you?
I'm very good, thanks. Enjoying some summertime in lovely and beautiful Copenhagen. So
I was going to ask, where are you now? I wasn't sure if you would still be in England or whether you may be somewhere completely different, but you're back in Copenhagen now, are you?
Yeah, we took our time actually in England and stayed for, I think, 3 weeks or something like that. Just to clear everything and also just not to be in a rush. And then we moved back to Copenhagen. My wife and I are from Copenhagen. So we're born and raised here. So we have an apartment here, and it was very easy for us just to move directly into that again.
Yeah, I love Copenhagen. I've been there before. The subway is the best subway I've ever been on.
It's also quite new, so it's probably one of the reasons why it's a good one, because I think it's only 20 years old, so it still feels quite new.
It's beautiful. It's a really nice subway, Justin. You laugh, but it's one of the most brilliant subways I've ever been on.
If I'm going to go on a subway tour of Europe, then I'll stick to Copenhagen on my list. There you go.
Yeah, but when you live in Copenhagen, you ride a bike, so I'm never really in the subway.
Yeah, Denmark is one of those European countries that cyclists everywhere, and I really, really do like that. But you also had loads of cyclists leaving their bikes outside of their apartments without any locks on as well, which is completely alien to someone who lives in Britain.
But it's kind of crazy. I always say to people that are, let's say, just from England, that they really, really have to be careful when driving in, especially Copenhagen, because it's not something that you guys are used to, because there's bikes everywhere, and they can go on your inside, on your outside, and you really, really have to be fully focused when you drive a car here.
We'll get started on the football then, Johannes. So, just talking about your background, actually, it is quite fascinating, because you didn't play professionally, no. But you found your way to first team management with obviously FC Nordsjælland after becoming a youth coach there in 2015, age 26, which is wild to me. Did you ever see yourself becoming a manager at that point?
No, never. Wow. It was not my plan.
Wow, no, that's incredible. That's incredible. What? I mean, okay. How did you then sort of pursue that, going from that point?
I've always been quite open to new ideas and where kind of just the life will take me. So I've always been involved in different stuff and not particularly just focusing on one specific thing and just saying, okay, I 100% want to go that direction, or that's that journey. So I'm kind of open-minded to a lot of things. The only thing I want to do is that I always want to keep myself busy. I always want to do different things and get involved with different things, and then kind of just see where it goes. So it was kind of a coincidence. I just started in football because I was studying at university at that time, and I didn't really want to have just a normal job, so to speak, next to the university to earn a little bit of money. And then the opportunity came for me to start at a football club, to earn a little bit of money to just pay the rent and make sure I had a little bit of extra. So it was kind of a coincidence. Of course, I knew some people. I played football up until I think the age of 15 or 16. So I knew some people who also contacted me and asked, could it be an option or possibility for you to start as a youth coach? And I said yes, and let me give it a try and see where it goes.
So football essentially was started out as a side hustle for you, just to earn a little bit of extra money.
Yeah, it did actually, because I was doing a lot of other things. I was actually at some point close to joining the army. Funny story. My grandma called me the day where she found out that I was close to joining and offered me what is 10,000 Danish kroner. It's what is that? That's £1,000 or something like that. Wow. To not join the army. If I signed the letter saying that I will never join the army, she will transfer the money immediately. And it was close to a summer holiday, and I was not that old. So I said, okay, that's probably okay. So I did that, and it of course also meant that I could not keep that in mind, or I could not continue that road. So I had to find out something else to do. So it was a little bit, like I said a couple of times now, a coincidence I started in football.
That's amazing. So obviously, football being a side hustle just to earn a little bit of extra money, to almost joining the army, to becoming head coach of FC Northland, then going to Norwich. What were your initial feelings when Norwich contacted you about taking over? Was it always the goal to get into English football?
I said to begin with, of course, I have an agency that supports me and helps me. That's I wanted to stay for Northland in many years because it's a fantastic club, and I think you can more or less, you have to call it a organization now, because it's they're also with Right to Dream involved in academies all over the world, and now San Diego FC and MLS. So there's so many projects and there's so many things going on. So I said to them, please don't get back to me if it's just a random club calling me because they are about to be relegated and they need a new coach for 10 games. I only want to be involved in projects where I can see myself be for more than just half a season or a season. And then Norwich came up, where they were quite thorough in the way that they have scouted me or found me. So that was, to begin with, quite impressive, but also interesting. And then, of course, talking about the project and the development of the club, and what was the purpose of hiring a young coach to English football. So it was kind of everything mixed together in that sense that made it interesting for me.
Yeah, we had a very good start to the season at Norwich, losing just 2 of your first 12 games. And you must have been pretty happy with how things began and how quickly the players initially took to how you wanted to play.
Yeah, but sometimes, Ryan, it's actually not the best when you're in for a long-term project that you start too good. because then you set the bar quite high for expectations also. It was, of course, everyone was happy about the start, and I think everyone could see that what we potentially could develop the team to become, in terms of a style of play, a clear identity, but also just the type of players that we could develop and hopefully make it to the league just above at some point.
So, just going off what you were saying there, do you think your good start actually kind of didn't do you any favours for later on in the season where things didn't go as well?
I think to be fair, it's something I reflected a little bit about afterwards, that we had a couple of good games, especially home games, where we played Watford at home, had a great win, and we played some beautiful football. We did more or less the same against Hull. And of course that raised the expectations just a little bit, because I think I received more and more questions regarding the Premier League, and we should be fighting for promotion directly, where I was a little bit more hesitant than saying, yeah, but we're still playing with a quite young squad. And there will be some lows also in the season. And I don't think we can maintain the same high level for the whole season. But that was the main purpose. And that was also the, if you can say so, the end purpose with the team, that at some day we should be able to play on that level consistently. But of course it created some expectations, but of course, you also want to win also from day one. So it was not only bad.
Yeah. Well, speaking of day one, on your first game of the season, you had Jonny Rowe, who seemed to refuse to play. So what happened there? Because it's not really been explained since what actually happened.
Yeah, but obviously there was a lot of changes going on that summer. I think when I arrived and looked at the squad, it was, I think, the second or third oldest squad in the league. And we took some big decisions saying, okay, we need to recruit much younger, and we need to make sure that the age profile of the team will become much younger. So there's so many changes going on, and there was transfers in and there was transfers out, and a lot of the transfers in especially was way different from what the club had done before. And as a part of that, Jonny Rowe was, of course, obviously because of his age and his profile, an interesting player for us to keep. But he had such a good season the season before, and of course is a very, very talented player. And also a proven championship player. So I can understand his perspective when a big club like Marseille, they arrive and they offer him a contract, and he really wants to go. And then sometimes these, especially young players, when it's the first time in their career that they try something like that, they find it a little bit difficult to manage how they should behave and what they should do in different situations. But it was actually quite simple. He came to me 20 minutes before the tactical meeting on game day and said he was not ready to play. And of course that's not ideal, both for the team or for the coaching staff. And I spoke to the leaders of the group, Kenny McLean, Shane Duffy, Grant Hanley, Angus Gunn at that time, and just explained them the situation. And they were also not too happy about it, but we just had to move on and make some changes to the squad and get the best out of it.
Yeah. Did he say that it was because he wanted to move?
Not specifically that he wanted to move, but because I think also there's some contractual issues you have to be aware of if you're too explicit why you're not feeling ready to play. So it was just very simple that he didn't feel ready to join that game.
You know, speaking of the profile of the squad, your good start was helped hugely by having two very talented players in Borja, Sainz and Josh Sargent. If I remember rightly, they combined very well at Pride Park earlier on in the season. We're both Derby fans for context. Johannes, very controversial win from
Remember
our
that
opinion.
First goal?
Yeah. How can I forget?
But between them, they scored 33 goals. They were incredible. But did you feel the team was over-reliant on them, or did you specifically build the team around them?
I think every team, when you have a couple of top players like Josh Sargent and Borja Sainz, then of course you have to build a little bit of your foundation around those two players. And then you cross your fingers and close your eyes that they are available for the most of the season, because I think every team in the world they rely on a couple of very, very good players, and they have, of course, if they want to be successful, they have to keep them fit and you have to keep them available. Borja is a fantastic player, talented player, and he's working very hard every day. He has a personality that can be a little bit tricky, but he's a great person. But he has a temper, and that was something that we worked a lot on. But we tried to see if we can create a game where we got him into certain positions every game he played, so he could find himself in those good shooting positions to score goals. And I think we succeeded with that to begin with in the season. And of course, also a big part of that was we had Marcelino Núñez ready in a lot of the games to begin with, Kenny McLean as well. So we had that core as well on midfield that could provide good passes to the strikers up front.
Obviously, speaking of Sainz, he's moved to Porto this last week. He had a pretty strange season where for the first 3 months he was unplayable. He was fantastic, he really was. But then he dipped as the season went. Obviously, it came with suspension halfway through the season. What happened with his form? How come he couldn't maintain it? Was it an expectation thing where he just came out of the blocks, or was it other factors?
I think there's two things to it. I think first of all, he came from a season where at the end of it, he started to score goals. But just remember 2 seasons ago, he actually played for Norwich under 21s a couple of games. So for him to be the star player out of a sudden was completely new to him. And of course, he had that fantastic start and he scored a lot of goals. And a lot of those goals were also very, very beautiful goals, fantastic goals. So after these, I would say 15 games probably, the opposition started to probably prepare a little bit better and a little bit more when they had to play against Borja Sainz, and they also started to find out about his temper and stuff like that and see if they could provoke him a little bit more. And that was something we worked a lot with to support him and help him. And it was difficult for him just to manage in some games, and also to manage in some games that there was out of a sudden not only one defender covering him or marking him. Sometimes there was 2, sometimes there was even 3 defenders doing it. So there was not really space for him, which just meant that there was space for some of the other players on the pitch. But that was a little bit difficult for him to what can you say, to find out or find his way in that. And I think towards the end of the season, he started to be a little bit better again. And then second of all, when you outperform on such a big note as he did to begin with at the season, at some point in the season, that outperformance will be more realistic again. That will go for every player. I think he's close to scoring 15 goals on I think 7 or 8 expected goals. So it's more or less double up on what we could expect from the goals that he scored. So at some point it will be more even and it will be more consistent. So I think a combination of a fantastic start, but also that fantastic start to even out a little bit, and the opposition paying more attention to him.
When you speak about managing his temperament, what measures do you take? Because I think it's the psychological element of it. I think we as football fans, we take for granted. So I guess as a manager, as a coaching staff, what do you have to do to manage a player in that sense?
Yeah, I think what's about to be a topic in international football is the pressure from outside, the pressure from media. I think 10 years ago it was like the media was not even important for a football player, but the fact is that we're all human beings, and I think a lot of us, we read a lot, we hear a lot, we have to comment on a lot, and especially a guy like Borja Sainz, where he is emotional and probably also a little bit sensitive in some ways. I think he took a lot of it in. So a lot of what we did was just purely on conversations and making sure that we trusted him, and we also trusted him when he made that stupid thing away against Sunderland where he got the suspension for, or was it 5 or 6 games, that we, of course, that there's a consequence when you're not behaving well, but after that consequence we also make sure that we still trust him, we still believe in him, and we're there to support him. So that was probably the best thing. And then I sometimes could put a little bit of pressure on him in training and making sure that he was maintaining his high level and not dropping a little bit, because he was taking some steps into being one of the most important players. So it was keeping him close and making sure that he could feel that trust, but also there was a consequence when he stepped outside.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see how he gets on at Porto. Another player who seems to be on his way out of Norwich is Josh Sargent. I made a pretty ballsy claim at one point in the season, Johannes, which was that I think Norwich would have finished much higher than they would have done if he was fit throughout the entire campaign. And when I say much higher, I mean, it kind of goes without saying that they would have finished higher if he was fit throughout the entire season. But I'm talking, well inside the playoffs. Do you agree that his injury record was something that really held back Norwich this season?
Yeah, I think that's a part of it, because like I said some minutes ago, I think a club like Norwich City, and I think it goes for more or less every team in the Championship, you have to rely on probably 5-6 of your best players, and you have to make sure that they are fit. And if not, then it's going to be difficult. And of course, Josh were out for a period, and I think it was November, December, and was out for a lot of games. And he's a fantastic striker. He's probably one of the best strikers in the league. So obviously when you miss out on a striker like that, then you cannot just replace with the same kind of quality. And we also saw that when he then stepped into the team again at the end of the season, where he more or less just scored goals in every game that he played. So he's a big factor, and a big factor for the club in terms of reaching the playoffs or even higher than that. I agree on that.
Yeah. Well, Norwich spent a lot of money last season on new signings, and almost all of them struggled to make a significant impact, definitely not on anywhere near the same levels as Sainz and Sargent. Someone who particularly comes to mind in that regard is Ante Cernak, who I think it's fair to say hasn't lived up to expectations despite costing in the region of £9 million. Why is that he hasn't necessarily met the standards that many people were expecting of him?
Because it's, of course, expectations will always be there. And when you spend a lot of money on a single football player, there will be expectations. But it goes back to where I started, that the strategy of recruitment started to be way different. So we were not purely thinking about performance players in the best age of their football career, talking 24, 25, 26, but younger players where the level or the quality of the player will probably first be seen after one season or 1.5 seasons. So he was one of them. Of course, he was expensive, and also for a club like Norwich, he was expensive, but he's a fantastic player. And I think probably stepping into the season, this season for Norwich, I think he could take steps into becoming a real top player in the Championship. But it takes a little bit longer time with younger players. And obviously that was the strategy of that summer window, where I think the average age was around 20 for the players that the club recruited back in the summer. And there you just have to give them the trust and the patience, because it will probably not be from day one that a player like that will succeed and show the whole world what he can do. But I have a great faith in him. I think he will take big steps this season.
Yeah, I'm interested to see how he gets on, considering, as we say, how much money was spent on him. But another player who cost a fair bit was Matai Jurasek. He cost around $6 million in January. He's only made 2 appearances so far in a Norwich shirt. And that was one of the things that I think a lot of Norwich fans were quite critical of you about, is him not playing more. Do you think he'll come good this coming season? And also, why was it that he didn't feature more?
Simple question is that he was injured. So, of course, I answered a lot of questions also in last season about his injuries, about his just general state of body, where he was. Could he play? Could he train? Could he be involved in games and stuff like that? But every time we tried to push him just a little bit, he had a setback and was not able to be involved in the squad. I think he's a fantastic player, and I think he's when he can get into a consistent run of trainings and games, then I think he will show what a fantastic player he is. So I think, of course, end of the day, a head coach or manager is responsible for all the decisions, but last thing I want to do is put an injured player on pitch. So it's not because we didn't want to play him. I think it was just because of all these small actually injuries he kept on picking up, but we somehow couldn't really solve. So it was a shame. It was unfortunate for him and for us, because he's a great player, and I'm looking forward to see him. So I think it's also a little bit hard to be critical on him, because he's had 6 months in the club now, and he's not really, like you said, I think he's been involved in 2 games, and I think it's kind of unfair to say that he's not lived up to expectations so far, because he's not really been able to show what he can do. So I'm really hoping that he can take the steps now.
Moving on to the performance of your team, obviously you mentioned earlier on about sort of the good start. Maybe setting expectations high, but an ongoing trend throughout the campaign was your side dropping points from winning positions. It was actually a trend that I forgot about that happened under your predecessor, David Wagner. His team lost 29 points from winning positions in the previous season. Can that be pinpointed to one element?
No, I don't think you can. I think first of all, I think it's on the other side. It's also positive that we got in front in a lot of games. Of course, not so positive that we dropped those points. And I think also, to be fair, we didn't get it right, or we were not solid enough defensively throughout the whole season. I think we managed in more or less every game that we played to create chances and score goals. And I think also, if you look at the stats and obviously just the amount of goals that we scored, it tells you that was something that worked well for us. But I think defensively we were not compact enough, and we were not probably not good enough in defending our own box when we had to defend crosses and these kind of situations. Also on set pieces, we were not defending well enough. So there were some clear topics for us that we were highlighting and we were putting extra focus on, and especially also prepared for this preseason this summer that we had to really, really dig deep into all the defensive aspects of the game, because we simply have to improve in that area. But I think we found it hard to defend crosses, and we found it hard to defend set pieces, and that was if you can say, an easy way to score against us, and that was not satisfying for any one of us. But it's not a quick fix. It's not something you can do overnight. But that was a big part of it, unfortunately.
Do you feel there were any sort of marginal changes needed to be made to make this, a more winning team? Obviously, if those 30 points were switched over, which obviously isn't going to happen, but if you accumulate more points throughout the season, you essentially finish higher. So do you think those changes were just marginal for you?
Yeah, but they were marginal, but still very, very important. And of course, we consistently throughout the whole season, we were looking at stats and situations from games, and we could see that in the areas I just mentioned, we kept on struggling a little bit. So we tried in training to see if we could fix it, and also made a plan for pre-season, how we could really focus on this part leading into the next season, so we could be strong defensively as well, because I think we managed to get it right offensively, but of course we need the other bit as well to make it a very consistent and solid team, so to say. And of course, obviously also that's a part of the journey was that we had to change a little bit of the team every transfer window, and making sure that the players that we got in, they were a good fit for the way that we want to play. And yeah, honestly, when you start at the club and when you start with a team, I, as a coach, have not selected these 28 players or 30 players, and it takes a little bit of time if you want to develop a very, very clear style. Then you need to find players that are capable of doing what you want to do. So I think eventually every good thing or everything, if you want to succeed, takes a little bit of time.
Yeah, absolutely. Just speaking about the form, or staying on the form, it did seem to drop off after Blackburn away at the start of March. What changed for you at that point, if anything changed?
Of course, obviously that was a big one for us, because of course with a win away against Blackburn, we could see that we actually moved closer to the playoff positions, and it was realistic for us to say that we were competing for those positions. Then scoring, and I think was it minute 89 or 90, the first goal, just to concede a couple of minutes after being one man up. That was a big blow for us, and I think that was probably also the time during the season where I was most frustrated after the game with players and everyone, because like I said so many times, football is not a blame game. It's not for me as a coach to say it was your mistake, it was your fault, and you should have done better. But I think we as a team should have done better in that moment, should have taken better care of the situation, so we could have got away from Blackburn with a win, because it would have meant a completely different end to that season. Instead, we found ourselves in that middle part of the table, where we cannot really compete for playoffs, we cannot really be relegated, and it's probably fair to say that when you just lose that 5% of desire or motivation, then you can see that on performance and on results, and I think that could probably be a reason why.
There has been speculation from some Norwich fans that you lost the dressing room around that time. Is there any truth in that?
I think I will always be the wrong person to ask that question, because I think that's down to the players. I think, to be absolutely honest with you, then we were about to make again some big changes in the summer window, and the ones that we got in, especially a lot of the young ones, I think they fully believed on the way that we were playing. But it's also fair to say that some of the players that have been in the club for many years or have played different styles of play was still adapting to that, and were probably not finding it suitable for their qualities, which is more than fair. Then you just have to be very honest with each other. I think also, to be fair to them, they were trying, so it's not like they just gave up. But I think it's fair that some were really buying into the ideas that I and we had, and some were probably struggling a little bit. And then when you find yourself, like I said, in that position where you cannot really compete for playoffs and you cannot really be relegated, and you have 5 games left of the season, where do you end 10, 11, 12 or 13th in the table? What does it actually mean? What's the difference really? Then especially the ones where they can see that their futures may be somewhere else after the season, they drop a little bit in performance level.
You left in April, just 2 games to go. I guess from our perspective, what was your initial reaction? It's something, again, as fans, we're not privy to. We don't see that. So, yeah, what was your initial reaction, and was it a surprise?
Both yes and no, I would say. Like I've said also to Danish media, I could feel that there was a little bit less communication about the upcoming transfer window. And as a coach, when that communication is less and less, then it could be a sign that changes are about to be made. I'm a big believer of just, I think, difficult times are probably the ones you need to be able to build something that is consistent and sustainable. I come from a club where in the difficult times you sit down together and you find a solution to the problems that you have, and you really stick together, and you make sure that going forward you have turned every stone, and you have shared every idea, and you probably work even harder, but you sit together and you make sure that you are a lot with the responsibility and not only one or two. I could feel that communication became less and less, and then those signs you cannot really, or you know what they mean at some point. I was still surprised because I think where we were as a team was probably what I expected. I know there's been a lot of talk about did we fight for promotion or did we not, and I will not go too much into that discussion, but I know to build something that can be successful over a longer period, then you need to have some moments where you're probably on your low and you're really recreating something, and then you make sure that you then start on performing on a high level, and that could have been with a preseason and then start of this season. So, but football is as it is, and there's also emotions and opinions from fans and stuff like that. And I think in a big club like Norwich, I think the voice of the fans is also a big thing.
What was the reasoning you were given for being dismissed, if there was any sort of specific reasoning, or was it something else broader?
I think it was the recent form. I think it was looking at the reason of the last 5, 6, 7 games that we've played, where obviously the performance was not top, and I also have to be honest and say we are far away from what I expected in terms of our level. So it's not like I cannot understand it. It's just there's different ways of working together in a moment like that, and of course some clubs they take the decision to find a new coach, and that's more than fair. It's always up to the owners and the board and the directors, and then some clubs they take the decision to stick together and make sure that you survive that tough period, and then on the backside of that you can start to succeed again. So there's many ways and there's many approaches to that. So, but to give you a clear answer, I think it was the form, 5, 6, 7 games leading up to that.
Yeah, the thing that surprised, I think, us and a lot of Norwich fans is that we got the impression that you were there for the long term. You were there for the Norwich project. So when you did get dismissed, we were like, oh, but we thought this was the man to lead Norwich in the long term. So what did you have conversations about, next season and being that man to be, overseeing this project?
Yeah, I think like I've also said a couple of times, I think what we did was also a lot of long-term planning, planning the preseason, planning the training camp, planning the transfer window, planning, players training with the first team, because we could see that in 6 months' time or 12 months' time, they will probably be able to make it into the first team and stuff like that. So we were not only taking short-term decisions. That was obviously because and I'm saying we because of Glenn as the assistant coach as well. We were expecting to be there for a longer time. But I also fully understand that when results are not 100% there, or the performance is not as expected, then there can be all kind of speculations and different decisions can be made. So, but that was the expectations to start with, and also one of the main reasons I said yes to the job, because I think there's a big potential in a club and in a city like Norwich. And that potential, we were just about to unfold. I don't think we were really close enough, to really do it. But with the main purpose of promoting to the Premier League, probably in season 2 or 3, and then to stay there, because that's the hardest part, I would say. Also, if you look at the Championship, how many clubs who have actually been in the Premier League and then going down the season after. I think the hardest part is to stay up there, and to be able to do that, you have to build something that is consistent and solid.
Well, being consistent and solid is kind of going off the back of what we were just saying then, because as we say, it very much seemed like you were the man to lead the project. So with that being said, do you think Ben Knapper, the sporting director at Norwich, did he almost kind of move the goalposts a bit when things started to have a bit of a wobble towards the end of the season?
I don't know. I think it's fair to say that, of course, obviously when I'm not the coach anymore, he have other ideas for how the club should be moving forward and who should be the coach, and that's 100% fair. It's his decision at the end of the day. Like I said, I'm used to working a little bit different with strategy. I'm used to working a little bit different also with sporting directors and directors, in having a purpose and making sure that you can fulfill that purpose, but also making sure that you are even tighter as a group when you face a little bit of adversity, like every club will do. I think one of the best examples is probably another Danish coach in Brentford, where his first season in Brentford was table standing wise even worse than our season. And I know Glenn, my assistant, he also contacted Thomas Frank after our last game in Norwich, just to hear from his perspective and also their stats, where we actually were in the championship, where their stats, they predicted us to be in the playoffs. What, in terms of our performances that season. So I think they were also a little bit surprised, but there's many ways to go around it, and there's many factors, and some can be a little bit affected by, like I said, by fan opinions and media and stuff like that. But it can also be that Ben just wanted another coach to drive the project in the direction that he wants to do, and it's 100% fair. It's his decision.
Yeah, speaking of Ben Knapper, the sporting director at Norwich, how was your relationship with him? Because I think behind the football curtain, I guess it's from our perspective, how does that relationship work, especially in the long term? Because obviously recruitment's done differently to, as we would perceive it. Yeah. So how was your relationship with Ben Knapper?
Yeah, but I think we were close. We were discussing a lot of ideas, a lot of good stuff, a lot of long-term planning. And I think. I don't think we got the summer transfer window right. I think we got in some good players that potentially can develop into become great players in the championship, but also players where they need some time to be able to do that. And I don't think everyone that we recruited was just perfect for our style and the way that we want to do it. But I think there was a good common understanding that it's when you have to change that much, then it will take a little bit of time. But in football, you have the time until you don't have the time. So that's just how it is. But I'm looking back at the season, and I know that's probably a little bit of frustration towards the end. But so many things and so many big decisions, losing out on assistant coaches, goalkeeper coaches, analysts in the middle of the season, moving to Stoke, recruiting new staff members in the middle of the season, working on a completely different style of play to what the players and staff members was used to. So I was quite, calm about the whole situation, because I know good things take time, and I know you have to do things well, and you have to do it consistent to make sure that you succeed. So that was probably the main difference at the end. But I think, like I said, the results at the end was probably the main driver for the decision.
You kind of touched on some of them there, but do you have any regrets from your time at Norwich?
No, not really, because I think we did what we discussed before the season started. That was what was the main purpose of the first season, especially because we knew that first season would probably be difficult because of so many changes. We played with one of the youngest squad in generations in Norwich, with an average age of 23 point something for the first time in so many years. And when you do that, you probably also know that so young players cannot consistently just perform week out, week in. So that's one of the decisions that we took, but it was deliberate. It was not something we just did because we could not find other solutions. It was deliberate because we were also preparing something for the future. So I'm not regretting too much about our decisions, and I'm glad we also I did and Glenn did a lot. Spend time with academy coaches, first team staff to have a training session with the youth teams, with the youth squads, to introduce them for the style of play and so on. So invested in the whole project, and I will never be regretting that.
Yeah, that's nice to hear. I did see an interview you did elsewhere where you did say things may have been different if you were allowed to bring in your own staff. Do you think, kind of following on from that, that made it a bit more difficult to get over how you wanted to play to the players?
That's 100% certain. That's for sure. If you have your own staff and they know your ideas and they know exactly how to train and how to go through games and how to recruit and how to plan, then of course it's more close to plug and play and you can just get started. But it was not that important for me because of, like we said, we were discussing a long-term project. We were also discussing about educating the staff members that was already there and educating the academy coaches. So that's also something that will take time, but eventually they will hopefully follow your ideas and be able to do the same on the youth teams. And then, the pathway from the young players to the first team will become even shorter and even faster. So that was a big thing for us to do that. But of course, if the purpose and if the strategy was different and the strategy was just, okay, you have 10 games, you have to win all of them, then I will probably say, okay, I need my backroom staff as well, because we have to make sure that every minute here is purely based on performance, and every decision we take is purely based on winning the match and on Saturday, and not thinking too long term, and not taking decisions that were for 4 weeks ahead or 2 months ahead, but only for here and now.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned one of your staff members leaving midway through the season, Narcis Pelach, when he went to go to Stoke. Yeah. Did that cause any disruption?
No, not disruption, but just imagine we spent a whole preseason, what was that, 6-7 weeks. We spent the whole first part of the season talking to him, and also for him to understand our ideas and our training ideas and our way of playing, and for him to get adapted to that and for him to get used to that. And he's very open-minded. He's a great coach. And I think we had a great coaching office, and he was really engaging a lot on that, and the goalkeeper coach, Paul Clement, as well, and one of the analysts, Harrison, as well. And then out of a sudden, the three guys where we have spent so many hours to begin with of the season, they say yes to an offer from Stoke, which is 100% fair, because it was a big chance for him, and I can 100% understand that he said yes to that. But it also means that we had to start all over again, and we had to bring in coaches from the academy to support us in that period, and they did very, very well. They were outstanding for that period, but they then had to adapt to the way that we did things and understand it. And then for us to go out and recruit another goalkeeper coach or a new assistant coach, and then for them to understand what we were doing. So there was a lot of things going on that was not only focusing on the players, but also the backroom staff. And that was one of the main reasons why I was, throughout the whole season, just calm and relaxed about it, because, like I said, things take time, and for people to get used to new ideas and stuff like that, for that to be very good, then you need to take the time, and you need to take a lot of hours to go into details.
What steps do you have to take as a head coach to essentially brief new members of staff halfway through a season? Because again, I find that quite fascinating. You forget about the disruption it could cause, but your coaching staff was completely uprooted. So what do you have to do as a head coach then with new staff? Yeah,
a lot. And it's not to, please, it should not be any way near excuses or anything like that. It's just to open up on what's actually going on as well, because a lot of questions you receive as a coach is about the players. But the fact is that when you as a football club on a high level, you travel to an away game, you probably bring close to 25 staff members as well. And they also have to understand the way that you play, the way that you train, the way that you lead as well. And that takes time, and it takes a lot of meetings. It takes a lot of team meetings, individual meetings, discussions, and so on for them to adapt and understand as well, but also feel the trust for them to share ideas. And it takes probably as much time as it do with the players. So there's kind of two streets here. There's the players and the staff, and everyone needs to be aligned in what you do. And then it's obviously not ideal when you lose out on key staff members in the middle of the season and you have to bring in new staff members and then onboard them with the stuff that is going on. As long as you're playing midweek and Saturday in the championship, and you have to make sure you can perform in these games. So there's a lot of meetings to do, and there's a lot of conversations, and there's a lot of hours.
One of your coaches that came in was Jack Wilshere. What were your thoughts on that appointment specifically?
I liked his background. I liked that he, of course, has played on the highest possible level. But I also really like about Jack that he's calm and relaxed about his coaching career. So he started with the youth team in Arsenal because he wanted to find his own way in developing players and developing his own ideas for the game. And those ideas was very, very similar to mine. So he was a great fit for us, and he was really eager to come. And I think in many ways it was a good recruitment for us. He was, like I've said, he was really open and honest about his situation, saying that after Norwich, he would prefer that his next job was as a head coach. And I knew that, and we knew that, and it's not a problem for me at all. I think a beautiful thing in a football club is always that when a head coach leaves, and hopefully because he's taken a step in another direction and not because he's sacked, then the other one from the backroom staff, the assistant coach, can take over. I think that's beautiful when it happens in football. That could have been potentially also the plan with us if we could have kept the same backroom staff for probably a season or two more. But I'm looking forward to what his next step is.
Yeah. Well, we nearly found out what your next step was, Johannes, because you were being very strongly linked with the QPR job early in the summer. And it looked as if you were going to be getting that job, but it fell through for some reason. So can you tell us what happened there?
I can probably tell you a little bit, because it's fair to say that there was conversations. And I think, the guys that I spoke to in QPR was really open-minded and have a lot of good ideas. And I think that the way they are structuring the club, both for now but also for the future, I think is kind of the same way that I see that a club should go and the direction they should go. And I think they spend a lot of time on experts, bringing that into the club and making sure that they have experts in every level. I think there was a great understanding for where they are in the league and what they can progress to, and I think also history-wise, especially with Marti Cifuentes, they have shown him that he will get the time to succeed with the team also in tough periods, because they were struggling a little bit last season, especially about Christmas time. But they were still showing faith and trust in him, which I think is a really good sign to show. Eventually we couldn't agree on a couple of things, and contract was a part of it, and yeah, that's probably what I can say. And I think it's also important for me not just to jump into the first and next club just straight after that, because it was quite fast after Norwich. I think we had the first meeting probably 8-10 days after I was sacked in Norwich.
There's one reason to stay for an extra 3 weeks after Norwich in that case. With that in mind, what's next for you, Johannes? Do you want to keep managing in England, or are you looking elsewhere around Europe?
I can definitely not join the army, so that's out of the picture. So no one knows. There's of course been offers at the table, and some of them I've looked into, and some of them I've said no to. I think it's important. My next step as a coach is to find the club where we are aligned on what to do and how to do things. And it's not being said that I can only work with a long-term project, but if I step into a club where they have to win more or less every match they play, then I just need to know, because then my decisions will probably be a little bit different compared to if it's a longer-term project. But it's important for me to find the right one. And I think with the offers that has been on the table for now, it's not been the right move for me. So, I love Copenhagen and I love my family even more, and we have a lot of family time together now. So it's probably not that bad. So, whether it will be in 1 week or it will be in 2 months, I don't know yet.
Yeah. I love Copenhagen as well. Great subway. Loads of Joe and the Juicers as well. There are so many Joe and the Juicers. You aware of this, Justin?
I'm not aware. You've not actually explained that one, but you are a big fan. So
yeah,
it's Danish Joe and the Juice. So that's the main reason.
I didn't know this until I went to Copenhagen. I was like, there's a lot of Joe and the Juicers here, but there's one like around every corner. It's great. So yeah, get yourself a tuna crunch, whatever it's called, because they're really, really nice. Johannes, thank you so much for your time today, mate. I've really, really enjoyed chatting to you.
Of course, it was great to see you guys.
Yeah. Hopefully, wherever you end up next, we'll be seeing you succeed as a coach. And who knows? Who knows what the future holds for Johannes Hoff Thorup. But this has been the Second Tier Podcast. If you're a Patreon subscriber, don't go anywhere. We've got the extended edition of the weekend show coming up, which we like to call Zamora Time. We'll be talking about the hardest things to adapt to coming from Denmark to the Championship. What was Delia Smith like? And how did Michael Essien get to work? Yeah. If you're not a Patreon subscriber, sign up to get some more time in every single weekend show. Head over to patreon.com/second tier. Link is in the description of this episode. But it's just about time for us here on the Second Tier. I've been Ryan Dilks.
I've been Justin Peach.
And a big thank you for listening.